Hi, I'm Beth Bonniwell, the Henrico Police Division's Domestic Violence Coordinator. Thanks for joining us on I'm Asking for a Friend. This podcast features survivors, advocates, and experts having conversations about domestic violence and related matters. From one friend to another, we hope listening will lead to the start of more conversations and safer and healthier relationships. Today, I am here with Henrico Police's Detective Wood, and we are going to have a conversation about economics and domestic violence. Welcome, Detective Wood.
It's my pleasure to be here with you, Beth.
I'm so glad that you made time for us today. And I'm just wondering if you could start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and maybe what led to your choice of wanting to help others and do police work.
I joined the police division in 2012. I'm a native of Virginia. I got my EMT certification when I was 16, so I had been involved in public safety my entire life. For the most part. I graduated from college just after the financial crisis of '08. So I was a member of the class of '09. There were a lot of issues in terms of economic turmoil and public protests and people interacting with law enforcement. I knew I wanted to be a detective. I knew I wanted to investigate cases and try to solve puzzlers, right? Things that would be time consuming and difficult. That was kind of what appealed to me.
Well, you probably know that we at Henrico Police get a ton of messages from citizens. There's one that piqued my interest, and this is why I wanted to sit down and have a conversation about economics.
Hi, Henrico Police. My name is Tish. I've been married to Cameron for 3 years, and everything we have is jointly owned. From the start, Cameron insisted on handling everything financially, which was sweet. But over time, things started to change. Last year, he interfered with my job search after I was passed up for a promotion, hiding my resume, turning off my phone before scheduled interviews, etc. He even contacted my supervisor in a harassing manner. After changing jobs, I discovered Cameron had taken out loans in my name, leaving me thousands of dollars in debt and damaging my credit score. I want to separate, but can't secure housing due to my financial situation. I'm wondering if Cameron has committed any reportable crimes.
Detective Wood, can we start with the basics? What is economic abuse? And does it sound like it might be happening in Tish's relationship?
That's a really important question. Whenever we're talking about financial crimes, it's always useful to start at the beginning and ask questions that seem obvious. So the first side of it is, what is economic abuse? Now, that's not really a legal term, so there's no crime called economic abuse.
Okay.
That term is more for like understanding abusive behavior and understanding how we can help victims and discourage the behavior in the first place and then help victims once it's occurred. The language here is economic abuse, preventing her from getting or keeping a job. That sounds familiar from our prompt. Making her ask for money, maybe not exactly what's going on here, but still part of the same idea. Giving her an allowance, so that's the control over the finances. Taking her money, not letting her know about or have access to family income. And as we know, our financial life is so incredibly intimately associated with everything else we try to do. If we can't work, we can't sustain ourselves. We might lose our home. We might become homeless. And all of these things are very potent ways of controlling someone else's behavior. So economic abuse is sort of inextricable from domestic abuse in larger contexts. So it sounds as though our citizen who called in with her message may not have experienced physical violence or sexual violence. We don't know. We don't know. Right. She didn't report it at any rate. But we do see behavior that is fully consistent, in my opinion, with that economic abuse and the establishing of power and control by means of controlling finances. So there are any number of statutes in the Code of Virginia that might be relevant. So if you're searching for the Code of Virginia and you search keywords economic abuse, you won't find it. So we need to think about in terms of identity theft or larceny or something like that. There may be a code section that's relevant.
Okay.
We just don't have a standalone one for economic abuse because the behavior is so broad.
That makes sense.
Then it might be deemed an impermissibly broad statute that would not pass constitutional muster.
So are there criminal offenses that are occurring in this situation? Like,
I think
there crimes?
So Tish mentioned that interference with the job search that's probably not going to run afoul. But towards the end of Tish's statement, she mentions these loans being taken out in her name and that her credit has become damaged by this. Now, that is 100% criminal behavior. And that's just the general identity theft statute. There is no spousal exception in the identity theft statute. So one of the issues with Tish's situation is, like all things involving domestic violence, it's really difficult to sort of untangle the knot of how do we extricate the victim safely from the situation once it's already started to go down the road of abuse. Prevention is one thing, but recovery can be really difficult. And so recovering from the financial abuse is hard. In general, there is an assumption of spousal property being shared among married individuals in the Commonwealth. So my spouse and I share all of our joint married assets. And if my wife wants to go to our joint bank account and take all of the money out tomorrow,
she can do that.
She can do it. It's 100% legal, and I'm out of luck. Even if it leaves me in a financial bind, it's her money. That's especially true if there's a joint bank account. So if you're married and there's a joint bank account, you really don't have a leg to stand on. The partner can do whatever they want with that account. So I want to stick with this idea of the false loans. So I cannot use my wife's social security number, date of birth, name, etc., to obtain a personal loan for myself without her knowledge or consent, even if we're married. It's still identity theft.
Is that a misdemeanor or a felony?
It depends on the value of the money loss. So as long as it's over $1,000, then it's a felony.
Okay.
Or if I obtain your personal information and I use that personal information in the commission of any other crime, then it's automatically a felony. There's the legality of it, and then there's the practical matter for the investigation. It will be incumbent upon the Commonwealth to prove that that loan was taken out without my spouse's knowledge or consent.
And when you say Commonwealth, that's
the
Commonwealth
prosecutor's office, yes, the Commonwealth's attorney of
office,
Virginia, for whatever locality we're talking about. So here in Henrico, it would be the Henrico County. Will have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to the satisfaction of the judge or jury that my wife didn't know that this loan was initiated and that I did it with fraudulent intent. And so one thing when I'm talking about fraud in general, we must prove intent to steal. That's what makes criminal fraud different from civil fraud.
Okay.
So if you and I are entering into a business relationship and it all goes sideways and you lose everything, but I didn't necessarily mean to steal from you, I haven't committed a criminal law. You could sue me and allege
civilly.
That, you could.
But that's not a crime.
Exactly. It's a totally different matter. So you could sue me civilly and say, well, Joe, defrauded me because he misrepresented what his business could do for me. But it wouldn't necessarily be a crime. And so as a practical matter, when we go to prosecute fraud offenses, it can be sometimes tricky to prove beyond a reasonable doubt the defendant's intent to steal. And we usually build that case by the circumstances that surround it.
Okay.
What were the behaviors? What decisions were made? And would a reasonable person have acted in that way? Or can only a person who intended to steal really explain the facts of what we see?
Okay.
In Tish's case, we can use all of these little details. She's calling my boss to harass my boss when I try to change a job. There are these overt actions that do not seem to support a hypothesis of innocence. There's the concealing of the finances from me. And then we have the loans.
Right.
That I say I'd never applied for.
And I think wanting to know what those loans are for would
sure.
also be important.
Sure. And how they were obtained. And all of that can be relevant information. Now, if it's all occurring within the spousal household, those can be troublesome facts to work around. So is Tish's case prosecutable? I'm not sure. We would need to do a lot of investigative work.
We don't have enough yet.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We haven't done the investigation.
Right.
But does it appear at first impression to be criminal? Yes.
So it sounds like there's a lot that would still need to kind of be fleshed out to see if an actual crime is occurring there.
Any reasonable officer would agree, I think, that this is a criminally predicated case. We have reasonable articulable suspicion that a crime has been, is being, or is about to be committed, and so an investigation can proceed.
I'm also wondering about the long-term economic consequences. What kind of impact are people having maybe after they leave a relationship and there has been this economic abuse occurring?
That's a huge issue. Recovering from this is much like recovering from a scam or other sort of financial crime in general. Oftentimes the money is gone, it's already been spent. I dare say that whatever Tish's spouse was doing with those loans or the other funds that he was withholding or allegedly withholding from her, it was probably not prudently invested. It seems like in every case that's what we find.
That's unfortunate.
So it
yes.
is incredibly unfortunate.
So where's this money going? Is it going to things, Bitcoin?
It
Obviously not good
depends.
investments.
It just
usually.
depends. And I'd say more often than not, it's just dumb stuff. It's just bad behavior, bad financial planning. I can think of maybe 2 cases I've worked where I would consider legitimate financial need to be the driving factor for the crime. In almost every case, it's just frivolous behavior.
Okay. And I'm thinking, where does this leave the victim? Does this leave them in kind of Tish's situation, unable to get stable, safe housing?
Yeah, Tish's situation is unusually bad.
Okay.
I'm sorry to say. Here we have the spousal home. We have Tish, who may be unable to obtain new credit now because her credit has been substantially damaged by the unauthorized loan activity. And she's in a situation where she's seeking a separation. Now the question becomes, is she going to continue to live in the spousal home? Does she want to have sole access to the spousal home? Is she going to obtain an apartment? If she does obtain an apartment or some other living arrangement, does she have the credit to sustain that?
Right.
Or is her credit damaged beyond repair? In terms of consumer reporting, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and this parallels the federal code, and the federal code is the Fair Credit Reporting Act. In a nutshell, it says that if a victim reports to the police that they have been the victim of identity fraud and that has led to adverse information on their credit report, that victim has the opportunity through the prescribed system there in the code to have those adverse reports removed from their credit history.
Okay.
Unfortunately, many of these steps have to be taken by the victim.
Oh. Okay.
So it's not something that law enforcement can really do on your behalf. So what Tish is going to have to do is Tish is first going to have to file a police report, and that can be with us or whatever her relevant agency is, and then she will need to report the identity fraud to the relevant credit reporting agencies.
Okay.
The 3 main ones that we deal with are Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian.
Those are very common ones that we all
Generally
kind of hear
speaking,
about.
there are some other ones, but those are the primary ones.
Right.
So it's incumbent upon Tish in this situation to follow the steps there in that code, make the police report, file the fraud complaint with the credit reporting agencies, and try to get those adverse loans removed from her history. That will improve her odds of success when she goes to seek other housing or to buy a vehicle, etc., to get those negative reports off of her credit history. The issue is going to be all of those same fact patterns. So she's going to have to be able to demonstrate that it wasn't her. And that could, depending on the facts, it could be hard.
So I imagine having an advocate as well, working alongside of her, maybe from a domestic and sexual violence local resource center or somebody, if this does turn out to be a crime.
That would be super helpful, especially for Tish. If she can obtain physical separation from the abuser before she starts to obtain financial separation, I would recommend that first.
Okay.
Because anything that she's going to do to safeguard her finances, there's a very high likelihood it's going to alert the abuser that she's trying to obtain control over herself.
That makes complete sense.
So I would recommend once the physical safety is in place, that we start to build some sort of financial independence. And that might be walking into a bank that's not the same bank where your joint account is and opening a new account. Once you're physically secure, we'll start to build a little silo, make some small deposits, maybe $10 a week or $50 or whatever your finances will enable you to do, to the point that, okay, now I have enough to buy a prepaid phone. And we start to rebuild the ability to have electronic independence too, if that makes sense.
It does.
So the first order of business, especially for somebody like Tish who thinks there's loans that they don't know about, would be obtain a copy of your credit report.
That's a good one.
So if you direct your web browser to the website annualcreditreport.com, that is not a federal operated website, but it is a federally mandated website. So what I mean by that is Congress passed an act that said Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian must provide to all Americans a copy of their credit report once per year at no cost. So that's
Free.
why for free.
Free,
So that's why
yeah.
it ends in .com and not .gov. I just want to
Okay.
point that out. It is a 100% legitimate website, and there you can request a copy of your credit report, and it is at no cost, one time per year for every American citizen. All right, so the next little tip here on financial tips for survivors: open a post office box for mail. I think that's a great idea. So on the same day that Tish is walking down to a credit union or a bank near her to open a squeaky clean new bank account,
Right.
she might also walk over to the post office and take out a post office box application. That way her statements don't have to go to the marital home. They can go to the post office box associated with Tish's account, and the abuser won't be getting her letters in the mail. Next on here is call utility companies, wireless services providers, and financial institutions to provide financial information associated with PIN codes and passwords. So, any changes to this bank account have to be done with PIN authorization or something like that.
Okay.
And that way, if the abuser, I guess, were to learn of the account, they couldn't just stroll into the bank and say, well, I'm her husband, I demand the statements for this account. She would have a note on the file that says any information must be obtained using a PIN or a password.
That's a great idea.
Change all existing financial and email account passwords, just in case we're in a situation where the abuser has access to the victim's email account or something like that. And then update insurance plans, wills, trusts, etc. to reflect your current wishes.
Okay.
And in terms of wills, it can be very expensive to have a lawyer draft a will, but it's never a bad idea. It's like a good investment to make, because now a copy of your true and accurate will is on file with that law office. And if somebody does want to make an unauthorized, like forged addition or deletion, there's a copy of your known true will with your attorney. It's much more difficult for them to successfully pass off a fake as the victim's true will.
That makes sense.
Yeah. You could also use a bank safe deposit box or something like that for the same purpose.
Okay.
An attorney doesn't have to draft a will. You can write it on a cocktail napkin in crayon if you want to.
Right.
It's just an additional layer of security that there's a neutral third party who has an original copy.
And that's a good protective factor for sure. The county has so many resources available, and many of these can be found on our Henrico Police Domestic Violence Assistance webpage. Information on how to make a police report is also on this website. Detective Wood, is there any other helpful message you want to share with our listeners?
Yeah, you're not alone. That's the main thing. The number one risk factor for falling victim to a financial crime is being alone, living alone without your spouse.
I did not know that. Okay.
So if you are living alone without a spouse, you're not alone in the world.
Yeah.
Find a support network. It's highly protective against falling victim to a crime because you have someone you can talk to say, hey, I'm asking for a friend, but my husband's kind of being a jerk when it comes to me getting this new job. Is that normal? Does that sound right to you? And if there's somebody that Tish can talk to, or any of us, then we're more likely to have that protective factor against the situation spiraling out of control. If we can stop it on the front end, then we're so much better off than trying to put the pieces together once the crime has already occurred.
Thank you for joining us, Detective Wood.
It's been really nice speaking with you, Beth.
And thanks for tuning into I'm Asking for a Friend. If you find this content helpful, please let us know. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, remember, you are not alone and help is available.